So Marissa was in Vogue. What have you done lately?
Not Vogue.
So, okay, but that's not my real first question. We had a great interview here last year, and it was your first or one of your first interviews after the IPO. We haven't had a chance to talk since then, so how's it gone in the last year in general?
It's been an interesting year. A lot of things always change around you when you're running a company. So I tend to think that it's my job to keep us centered on what matters, right? And different companies focus on different things, right? I mean, there are companies that are really obsessed with their way of doing stuff. You hear stories from HP back in the HP way of doing things. For us, we're really singularly focused on this mission, right? We want to connect everyone in the world and give people tools to share whatever they want. And that's been this unifying theme for us for as long as we've been around. I remember when we were first getting started back in my Harvard dorm, I used to get pizza with my friend, this guy KX, at the time. He's actually at Harvard, he's at Facebook now. He's a VP of engineering. And we used to talk about how, we were building this little site that was just to help people share and connect within this small community. But one day, someone would surely build something like this for the whole world. And at the time, we thought, okay, there's no way that this is going to be us, right? Because we're just a couple of kids in a college dorm room. Like, who are we to do this? Like, this is going to be, this is the purview of the Microsofts and the Googles and the companies that build stuff at larger scale. But the story of Facebook has really been about we started at one college and we spread and we kept on growing to the next thing. And I think the reason why we're here today is because we've just cared more about this mission than anyone else has. So now we're at this interesting point where, for a while inside the company, getting to 1 billion people was this big rallying cry, right? And when we actually started getting closer to it, it became pretty apparent that it's not. No one wakes up in the morning saying, "Okay, I want to get 1/7 of the people in the world to do something." It's a nice round number. It happens to be bigger than anything else that anyone's built, but it's 1 billion isn't like a magical number. So now, as we've kind of approached that and passed it, now the focus for us is actually kind of retooling, and you're going to see us retooling the company in a lot of ways to go take on a lot of harder problems that fulfill this mission. So, for example, connecting the next 5 billion people, it's going to be really hard because a lot of them don't have internet access. We have people share and put billions of connections into this big graph every day, but now we don't just want to add incrementally to that. We want to, over the next 5 or 10 years, really take on a roadmap to try to understand, everything in the world semantically and kind of map everything out. And we want to play a role in helping, people build companies and create jobs and build a knowledge economy. So those are the big themes for us, and that's what we're going to try to do over the next 5 or 10 years. But that's kind of what I've tried to focus us on.
So to sum that up, you want all the people. No, I'm kidding.
We want to help connect everyone. I think, not everyone uses Facebook, but most people, I think, at this point do use social tools for different things. And I think a lot of the design patterns and the work that we do can help lead in that part of the industry. We're really proud of the work that we're doing there.
Okay, you said a lot, and I'm going to try to unpack some of that.
That's what you said after my first last year.
I know, you do that, and it's your brain works a little faster than mine, so I'm just going to try to slow it down a little bit. A lot of this goes to internet.org, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit later as you expand to all the people from 1.3 billion today?
No, we're 1.15 monthly active.
Okay.
Right, so.
How many a day? It's like 500 million a day?
No, our last quarterly report was 699 million daily active users.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, not bad.
So what do you think about the Yahoo logo?
That's like, of all the follow-up questions that you could have asked to that,
It seems to follow naturally. But I know Marissa's backstage watching, and so you can just look right into the camera and tell her what you think of that awful. You don't want to answer that question.
Seems fine to me. But I mean, you're talking to someone who we've had the same logo for almost 10 So I mean,
Okay. Okay, how about this? You gotta get some. So Twitter's going to go public. Now you've gone through the whole thing, and you had your, some pretty rough times, but everything's great now. What's your advice to them as they consider this process?
see, that's funny on its surface because I'm kind of like the person you would want to ask last how to make a smooth IPO. But seriously, it's actually a valuable process. So having gone through what I think most people would characterize as an extremely turbulent first year as a public company, I can tell you I actually don't think it's that bad. I was really heartened by the fact that I was really worried that people would leave the company and people would get really demoralized if the stock price was down, but people were really focused on the mission and really believe in the products that they're working on, and we haven't seen a lot of that. I actually think that it's made our company a lot stronger. Because the process of leading up to going public, you have to know everything about your company and kind of inside out have everything instrumented. And I always thought we were a very data-driven company, but I mean the work that Ebersman and crew did to get us ready to be public really took this to the next level. And we run our company a lot better now. So I mean, in retrospect, I think I was too afraid of going public, and I think I've been very outspoken about staying private for as long as possible. I don't think it's that necessary to do that, and you just got to stay focused on doing the right stuff. And sometimes it might take the market a little while to catch up and see the results of what you're doing. I mean, I remember last year when we were here, I was kind of laying out what we were planning on doing on mobile, and everyone thought that mobile was this disastrous thing for Facebook. I mean, last year, second quarter, we had basically no money on no revenue on mobile, and now I mean it's in our last quarter, a year later, more than 40% of our revenue is mobile, and people think that there's more competition on mobile, there's more great apps. People spend on desktop 1 in 7 minutes with Facebook of kind of all their time on the web, and on mobile it's more. It's 1 in 5. According to ComScore. It's around 20%, and the next biggest app is Instagram. So, we've focused on kind of doing what we think are the right things, and we're growing, we're connecting more folks, people are engaging more, sharing more content, all the stuff that we just come in and get excited about every day. So I think, as long as Twitter, and I mean this goes for all of these private companies that are thinking about when they want to go private, as long as they kind of focus on what they're doing, then I think it's wonderful. It's great.
To be fair, your mobile products a year ago sucked.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. And then they got really, really good really, really fast. So I think you deserve to have no revenue from them a year ago. So part of it is just, but I mean, whether you admit it or not, or you agree or not, I mean, there's been a lot of work in that area and a lot of focus that maybe wasn't there before.
No, absolutely. And we also, we took a bad bet, right? I mean, our legacy as a company was building this big website and focusing on being able to develop for the web. So naturally, we tried to look at things and see if we can build an HTML5 system for across these different platforms. And we just realized pretty quickly that we weren't going to get the quality level that we needed. So we took a year, and it was painful, and we retooled that. And we took a lot of shit because we weren't focused on making money on mobile, and I was focused on making sure that the experience was better first, and I think we did it in the right order.
Well, it's better, I think, to go from awful to really good than really good to awful. So I would agree on the order part.
Generally, yeah.
You started talking about platform there for a minute, and I want to talk about that. I want to go ahead and jump into this. So you talk about the old Facebook platform. Does it have any meaning for you at all at this point, or is it just you're so focused on mobile that the old Facebook platform is just dead?
So, for me, when I think about our mission in connecting people, it's not, you made this joke that we want to get everyone to use Facebook, and of course we do, right? But that I don't think is realistic. I think what's more likely is that people are all going to be using tools that they can use to connect in different ways. And when I was getting started with Facebook, I felt this void in the way that we developed technology, which is that, as people, our whole brains are wired towards communicating with other people, right? I mean, we have whole parts of our brain that are just focused towards, seeing micro expressions, processing emotions from other people. And the way that we build software and services as an industry didn't reflect that at all, right? And that just seemed kind of deeply wrong to me. I mean, there were all these tools that you could use if you wanted to get access to different kinds of information, but the thing that we care most about, which is what's going on with the people we care about, there was nothing for that. And early social networks kind of tried to do everything themselves. And I think one of the things that we realized was that no one company can do everything. So instead, we should focus on doing a few of the core things, and instead we should try to build a platform that would enable other companies to build great social apps. Right? And the first version of that took the form of Canvas, which was basically people building games and other things inside of Facebook. And that's evolved into almost $1 billion a year business for us. So it's good, right? But that was never the vision, right? I mean, the full vision over time was not that everyone would be building stuff inside Facebook, although a lot of people get value from that, but that we could help apps by enabling login, enabling importing of friends, enabling distribution out, different services, and that's kind of what we're focused on now. We have 3 pillars of the platform strategy, which are build, grow, and monetize. Right, and on the build side, we want to do stuff like login that makes it easier to develop apps with identity. We have services like Parse now that make it so that it's easier to build an app. You don't have to worry about the back end. It's just like you worry about building your client, and you don't have to worry about the servers or the server-side code or push notifications or connecting to other services. It just works. It's awesome. There's more than 100,000 apps. It's going really well. On Grow, people think about Facebook platform as distribution, and that's true, right? That's always been a big part of the story, and we've been kind of an important part of helping people grow their apps, both organically. One of the biggest new things that we're doing is mobile app installs, right? It's a part of our business that's growing really quickly. A lot of developers are really starting to rely on us as the primary way that they spread their apps, and that's great. And then monetize as well, right? A lot of developers use us for payments, for making money for their services. So if we can help make it so that the industry overall can build better social apps that are more human by helping them build, grow, and monetize, then I feel really good.
Okay. I'm going to go with a personal question now, if you don't mind. I don't know how many people realize that you have, every year I think you have a personal challenge where you challenge yourself to do something crazy, interesting, hard. In the past you've learned Chinese, which you did.
Tried to.
Was one code every day?
What's up? No.
Okay, I made that wrong. You certainly have to kill everything you eat here, right? Where suddenly on Facebook it's like, I killed it. Yeah, but you did. You killed everything. And there was the wear a tie every day, and I don't know if I missed some, but do you have one this year? And I don't know what it is if you do have one.
Yeah, no, I do. The point of these is really, I think you get perspective for building things by living in different worlds and by kind of going deep on things. So doing something for a year, I think you have all these interesting unintended consequences of making some decisions. So, and then the other theme for me is about willpower. And I think a lot of building something is just about kind of seeing things through, and so try to pick things that are going to be hard for me to do. Like learning Mandarin, for example, I was always really terrible at languages. And when I tried to learn French in high school, and I just couldn't do it. When people would say things to me, I couldn't. It was really hard for me to understand what people were saying. So I went to Latin instead, which is better because you don't have to know and speak Latin. So that worked. And then that was actually a lot of fun. So I was like, all right, I'm going to try to pick up what is one of the hardest languages for people who only speak English to learn. And it was interesting. I mean, one of the unintended side effects of it was part of learning was I set up these sessions where Mandarin-speaking Facebook employees would come and talk to me about parts of the company that they were working on that I wouldn't normally have meetings in. And it was great. I learned Mandarin, and I learned more stuff about our company, and I met a bunch of people, and it was awesome. At the end, I was complaining to my wife one day that, I was never that good at listening in Mandarin. And she goes, Mark, you're not good at listening in English either. So at that point I realized that the level that it was going to take me to get to really be fluent in Mandarin was very hard. So I tabled that for a while. But so this year my challenge is to meet a new person outside of Facebook every day. And And I think it's really valuable to have perspective on,
In person?
yeah, and have like a conversation, right? So not just
In
like
person, yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's actually turned out to be really easy. I sandbagged this one because it turned out that I actually, on average, meet more than one person already. So I kind of underestimated that and thought that because I'm so introverted that I wasn't talking to a lot of people externally. But when I was planning this out, I kind of set up things to get more involved in the community. I started teaching a class at a local middle school. I got involved in different organizations to meet people who do different things, and it's been really interesting.
Now that class, the middle school class, is what led to Forward.us, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the reasons why I started doing that was, Priscilla and I have done a lot of education work. I mean, her career is kids. I mean, when she graduated from Harvard, she went to become a teacher, and now she's a pediatrician. She's a resident. And some of our dinner conversations are all, Facebook and kids. And so she decided one day that, if we were going to do a bunch of education projects, that I couldn't just be that guy that gives money to education projects without ever having taught myself, right? Which I think is a pretty reasonable perspective. So she helped me set up this class. And one day after class, I asked the students how they were thinking about going to college. And one of the top students in the class raised his hand and said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go to college because I'm undocumented. And I was just, my mind was blown, right? I hadn't really thought about that, and this kid was so talented, and I couldn't tell the difference. There was no perceptible difference between him and any of the other students. So I asked the other kids, how many of you were born outside of the US? And a bunch of them put their hands up. And one of them said, I really hope our government does something about this. And I kind of went home that night, and I talked to Priscilla, and I talked to my friend Joe, who is one of the smartest people I know in both technology and politics, and the intersection between them. And I was like, we have to do something. How can we do this? And the great news is that we decided that we were going to try to build an industry coalition, right? So it wasn't just going to be something that a few people were going to take on. So I called a bunch of my friends who run companies, right? I mean, I called Drew Houston, and I called Chamath and Kohler, who had been at Facebook, and Ron right there. And the great thing is, the tech community really cares about changing the world, right? So a lot of people I would expect to have been, okay, no, I care about getting, high skill folks for my company, but we made very clear up front, this is not just about the high skill piece. We're not going to compromise. If we're going to push on this, and we're going to push for getting full comprehensive immigration reform done. And people in the tech community are really idealistic and really believed in getting that done. It wasn't very hard to get people on board, and I've never really been prouder of my peers in the community for coming together to work on an important issue like that.
Do you think anything will happen with that this year? Or next year? Or ever? It's really tough like that to mess around with Washington, D.C., right?
I'm an optimist. I think you have to be an entrepreneur, right? These things are not without risk, but there are a lot of people who want to do the right thing. People talk a lot about how in Washington it's so polarized and no one can get along, but the conversations that I've had, a lot of people really want to do the right thing and agree with this and are kind of looking for a path forward.
So, zero chance of anything happening this year, next year?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say. It's not my job to get it done. It's my job to kind of help provide support for the people who are going to do it.
The culture at Microsoft. Oh, speaking of Microsoft, who do you think should be the next CEO of Microsoft? And thanks for bringing that up, by the way. It's got to be Gates, right?
I can tell you.
The founder.
I'll tell you what I hope, right? There are probably a lot of people who can run Microsoft and do a reasonable job. When I was growing up, Bill Gates was my hero.
Oh, come on.
Yes?
He's like Darth Vader. He's not Luke Skywalker.
No.
He's the bad guy.
No, he is not. Bill Gates ran one of the most mission-driven companies that I can think of. Right, and right now I think Microsoft, their mission is less focused than it used to be. But when I was thinking about it, I thought it had a great mission. Put a computer on every desktop and in every office, right? Or maybe it was every desktop and every home. there are companies that define themselves by a way of doing things, right? And there's, and like the HP way that I was talking about, and there are companies that define themselves by making a concrete change in the world. And, Microsoft did that. And I have a huge amount of respect for him for doing that. He pushed them, and it was an incredibly inspiring company during the time that he was doing that. I think that they still are doing a lot of things, but I think that they've lost some of the focus. And I don't know. I think he's like one of the greatest visionaries that our industry has ever had.
So, do you think he'll come back?
I don't know. You have to ask him.
Do you know? No. You don't have to answer.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. I don't think you'd lie to me, I don't think you'd lie to me, so.
I'm not a very good liar.
No, actually, no, I don't think, and that's why I'm going to ask you a couple other things later. The culture of moving fast at Facebook, is this a good thing, or does it just get you into trouble? And we can talk about things like home if you want.
Whatever you want to cover. It gets us into tons of trouble, right? So I'm of the belief that values are only useful when they're controversial, right? So, there are companies that write out these value statements that I think are kind of meaningless because they're table stake stuff. It's like, be honest. It's like, of course you're going to be honest. That's not a choice, right? That's not a value. You have to be honest, right? Like, go home if you're not honest. But if, move fast is good because it's something that people can actually disagree with. Right, and there are companies that don't move fast and that succeed, right? And I think, what I really mean by move fast is that I want to empower people at the company to try things out, and I don't demand that every iteration of what we release is perfect. What I want to optimize for is learning the most and having the best products 3, 5, 7 years from now, right? Which you can do by iterating quickly, getting feedback, learning and going from there. And there are companies that have very different approaches than that. I think Apple would never launch something that didn't meet their perfection bar, and it served them incredibly well, right? So I think move fast is a very nice kind of you can meaningfully disagree with it, and I think it leads to interesting outcomes. Now, in terms of what we're doing, I think it's incredibly powerful inside our company. What it leads us to do is build a ton of infrastructure that empowers engineers to try a lot of stuff. So, at any given time, we have this testing framework where there are thousands of different versions of Facebook running, and any engineer is empowered to try something out, and they get this report of how it performs on all of the metrics that we care about, all of the sharing and time spent and engagement and amount of friends that people have and amount of money that we make, and even for every test that we run, it'll kick off a qualitative survey to that set of people and ask them how happy they are and how much they like that version of Facebook. So that's really empowering, right? Because now if you're an engineer and you're trying something, you don't have to get approval of a bunch of different layers of management. You just go try something, and then when it works, it worked. Let's turn it on for everyone.
Okay, so this is a surprise to you. You don't know what I'm looking at right now, but explain this sign that's up at Facebook. Actually, I don't know for sure it is, but I believe it is. And if it isn't, you'll tell me. Because this doesn't say move fast.
Slow down and fix your shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, sometimes you have to do that.
Is this a sign you put up? I don't know if this is the camera.
I don't put up any of this.
To see this. It's a camera, but have you seen this sign? Is it up there?
Yeah, people put stuff all over the campus.
Yeah. So this doesn't mean anything official?
I definitely want us to fix our stuff.
Your stuff?
So that's good. These things are valuable when they're controversial, right? And it doesn't mean that we always need to do it. And it's not like any company wakes up in the morning and they're like, we want to move super slowly, right? So what I want this to mean for us is that we want to build our culture and our infrastructure so that we just try to move, 1 or 2 clicks faster than other companies. And sometimes we go too fast and we mess up a bunch of stuff and then we have to fix it. No, that's cool.
Would you consider home so far a failure?
One of the toughest things is determining when something isn't going to work versus just hasn't worked yet. I definitely think home is slower in rolling out than I would have hoped. Now, so what we've gotten is a bunch of positive feedback on, people like the lock screen, they like cover feed, they love chat heads, we rolled that out 100%. And And then we've gotten a bunch of pretty valuable feedback, like people want more content than just Facebook content on the lock screen. So we're taking the time to build that in. And one of the upcoming monthly releases, you'll be able to get Instagram content and other social content in there, and I think that'll just make it more valuable. So yeah, I'd say it's early in its development. It's a bit slower than I probably would have thought, but we're patient, and I still fully believe that this is going to be something that a lot of people want over time. Getting content delivered to your home screen and being ambiently aware of what's going on is, I think, a very valuable thing. So maybe the current formula we'll still need to keep on working on, but we're going to do that.
Okay. There was somebody at TechCrunch referred to it as a shit show. So you're saying you disagree with that? All the great parts of it, you moved into the mobile apps already. I mean, all the good stuff, like chat heads, you moved into the general. Yeah. So I mean, in that sense, it's almost a testing ground, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the parts that work well will roll out quick, and the parts that don't will kind of slow down. The long-term goal for this is, we released the first version of Home as a separate app, and we kind of intentionally did that just that people who wanted could go out of their way at the Play Store and go get it. But where this is going over time, once we get into a point where we're really happy with the product, we'll just kind of prompt people in the Facebook app, turn this on, and you won't have to go download a separate app. You'll be able to have your lock screen as part of the main app. And you can do that today if you want. You just have to go into settings and turn it on. But when we feel like it's at the quality bar that we want, which we're getting there through iterating by having it out there and getting feedback, then we'll do that. So it's not super far off, and we're just going to keep on working on it until we get it right.
All right. So, NSA, user data. You have 1.1 million users, a billion. You have more data than any entity in the world. And it's all of our data, and we care a lot about it, and we don't want people necessarily getting it and using it to do bad things. We know what Facebook has done over the last several months to try to help increase transparency. We've seen the lawsuit, we've seen those efforts, and I don't need you to repeat them, although I'm happy to talk about that if you want. What I want to know is what Mark Zuckerberg thinks about these issues and our right to privacy versus the government.
Yeah, so we take our role really seriously. I think it's my job and our job to protect everyone who uses Facebook and all the information that they share with us. It's our government's job to protect all of us and also to protect our freedoms and protect the economy, right, and companies. And I think that they did a bad job of balancing those things here, right? So frankly, I think that the government blew it, right? I think that they blew it on communicating what they were, basically the balance of what they were going for here with this. So, the morning after this started breaking, there were like a bunch of people asked them what they thought, and the government's comment was, "Oh, don't worry. Basically, we're not spying on any Americans." Right? And it's like, "Oh, wonderful. Yeah, it's like that's really helpful to companies who are trying to serve people around the world, and they're really going to inspire confidence in American internet companies." It's like, thanks for going out there and being really clear about what you're doing. So I think that was really bad, right? And we've been pushing just to get more transparency on this, and I actually think we've made a big difference, right? We haven't. The big question that you get from all the coverage is, so what's the volume of the total number of requests that are going on? Is it closer to 1,000 requests that the government is making of us, or is it closer to 100 million, right? And I mean, from the coverage and from what the government has said, you would not know the difference, right? But we worked really hard with the government behind the scenes to get it to the point where we could release the aggregate number of requests. And it was around 9,000 in the last half a year. And does that number tell us everything that we want? No. And that's why when the conversations kind of got to the point where we weren't going to make further progress, we decided to sue them so that we could reveal, is it 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 or 8,000 of the 9,000 requests. But the reality is, because of the transparency that we pushed for, now people can know, and I think they deserve to know, that the number of requests that the government is making is closer to 1,000, right? It's 9,000 or less in the last 6 months, and definitely not 10 million or 100 million. Or
it's not a drag with regard to grabbing data.
Yeah. So we're we're not at the end of this. I wish that the government would be kind of more proactive about communicating. We are at sight that we had to sue in order to get this, but we feel like people deserve to know this, and we just take this really seriously.
All right, thanks. Last question. What are you excited about product-wise that would surprise us?
Well, it would surprise you. I mean, we haven't spent much time talking about the internet.org stuff, which I think is probably not surprising because it's announced. But that's one of the things that I'm really excited about because it's, I think, a very underestimated problem. We live in a world where everyone around us has high-speed internet access. So it's kind of unfathomable for us to think that only about a third of the people in the world have access to the internet. And for something that's so early in its development, it's actually growing really slowly. The internet is growing less than 10% a year, right? Which is kind of startling for how few people in the world have access to this and how early it is in its development. And then you think, okay, well, the internet is really the backbone of the modern knowledge economy, and all the opportunities that we have, and the ability to have a free society and tap into jobs and education and all this stuff, and it's not happening by itself. It's not growing at a fast rate, and it's also easy to think. There are 5 billion phones in the world, right? The vast majority are feature phones. There are about 1.5 billion smartphones. And, the common lore is, smartphones are getting cheaper and cheaper. So as they get cheaper, one day all 5 billion of those feature phones are going to be smartphones. And I actually think that's probably true in the next, 5 to 10 years. But the thing that is easy to kind of misinterpret in that is that the expensive part of ownership of a phone is actually not the phone, it's the data, right? If you have an iPhone for 2 years, it costs about $2,000 to own an iPhone for 2 years. $500 or $600 of that is the phone, right? $1,500 is the data, right? So unless the data price comes down, we're never going to be at a point where the vast majority of the world will be able to be on the internet. And that's what we're trying to focus on and trying to work with other companies to enable by making the infrastructure to provide the internet cheaper, making it so that the biggest and most frequently used apps just consume less data, so that way they're cheaper to use and they require less data. And also trying to provide new business models to make it so that more people can get on the internet. So that's a big focus for us. That's probably not much of a surprise.
You intend to make this happen, don't you? You intend to put the rest of the world.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is why we are here.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, your first question was what has changed, and my answer was, all the tactics change all the time, but mission doesn't change. That's who we are. We are on this earth to connect everyone and help people share more of what they want. And we will do this.
Whether they want to or not. No, I'm just kidding.
Everyone wants to be connected. It's a very fundamental thing. Not every person in the world might want to use any specific service, but that's why there's a platform and the internet is a broad place. But no, this is like what we're going to focus on.
All right, Mark. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.